when I get to that point. Yes.
Just a question regarding the wall behind T number 1. It's a real eyesore.
That's the HOA. They're working with Miramar. That's not us.
Okay.
Okay. Brian, if you could get in touch with me the next week or so and let me know what would be good to get together with those renderings so I can get Elizabeth and Teresa and John together.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. And Brian, on your way out, if you could check
I will.
the cul-de-sacs and the
Yes.
corners. Thank you. Okay. Corkscrew Pines drainage. Where are we looking at?
Well, you had a review of that by your engineer,
Yes.
and they opined that it was, as it was designed, was appropriate, and they had the recommendation to do the filters, if you will, in the inlets around the gas station parking lot in particular, and put a time frame on there in which it should be reviewed, replaced, and that we'd be put on notice every time that it is reviewed and replaced. So
Okay, can we require a time frame for that?
I think you were going to follow manufacturer's recommendations, I believe, on the time frame, the frequency of replacing those filters. So.
Yeah, and as a follow-up to that, I went on the South Florida Water Management District website this morning and found the revised plans that were submitted April 1st, I think, and there's a stormwater management engineering report. It says January 2022, but signed on April 6th. I sent that to Brent to look at, because it appears that what's needed by the applicant for that South Florida Water Management District permit is it says per your plans, there are proposed works within the Corkscrew Road and Stony Brook Gulf Drive right-of-way. Please indicate what authorizations have been obtained for the works within the right-of-way. In response, this is an April 1st response from this year. The proposed turn lane within the Corkscrew Road right-of-way has been submitted to Lee County. Therefore, they are aware of the project. We are still in the process of getting the required signature sheets from Stony Brook Community Development District. What I would suggest is, I know Brent may have already looked at, or Joseph, the right-of-way, the work in the right-of-way of Stony Brook Gulf Drive earlier. And so I would suggest that if the board was to approve this, that a couple of things. One, that the applicant developer enter into a hold harmless indemnification agreement for the district, because we're authorizing basically a license in the right-of-way for the activity. And that another condition be incorporate that into the South Florida permit about the changing out of the filters. I think that's important. Otherwise, there's no requirement for that to occur. So that might be the conditions upon which the board could say, we approve signing off on being an applicant for this permit if we have these two conditions. And I don't know if Brent needs to relook at the plans I sent today or not. I don't know if they're any different at all, but they were dated April 1st, I think, Brent, the new plan.
Yeah, just got an email this morning.
I know, I just dumped them on him this morning.
I'll be taking a look at it, because there are some other conditions they had in there too, as far as buffers and wetlands. There's some other stuff we need to take a look at as well. But I'll also work with Joe and Andy, making sure we get the right-of-way issue and our hydrocarbon interceptor leak.
Yeah, what I would suggest then, if the board's of the mindset that this item be tabled to the next board meeting, then the board could authorize signing of the form with the attached conditions, right-of-way permit, hold harmless indemnification, the filtering system, if the engineers are comfortable with the plans.
Right.
The right-of-way, they're going to use the road out back there? I'm confused.
Here's what they're proposing. Can you describe what you're going to be doing there, Brent?
If we go out my back gate here.
Stony Brook Gulf Drive?
Correct. And you're pulling up to Corkscrew?
Yes.
There'll be an entrance to the gas station there. And there'll also be the other entrance. There's two commercial parcels over there. They're developing one right now. The road will continue on around back to Corkscrew. I don't have the plans in front of me.
Okay. My concern is, will that road handle the type of commercial traffic that they're talking about? I mean, we tried to, a couple years ago, give that road to the Board of Education. And to get that road up to standard for them to take it, for just the school traffic, was like $65,000. And we said, no, we'll just keep the road. That road, no way can handle commercial traffic. I mean, at least, I'm not an engineer, I don't know.
We can look back at whatever they've submitted to Lee County. I'm sure Lee County's Transportation Department is taking a look at it.
But they haven't contacted us at all about fixing that road to make that road worthy of the type of traffic that's going to be on it.
Because we own that road.
We own that road. That's ours.
So that might be a conversation we have with the Village of Estero.
Okay.
Saying to make sure that, because I think there's 2 applications pending, one with the village and one with South Florida. Is that correct, Brent?
Yes.
And so I think that's an important issue to bring up with the village.
In 24 hours.
I thought that we had a conversation with Lee County who wanted some easements, and we granted those easements on the fact that they would redo that road.
Yeah.
All right, we gave them an easement up at the corner. They got like a 10 by 10 spot or something. All they were doing is top dressing it. They were not curbing it, they weren't doing
So
anything
even the
else.
top dressing, but that deal was top dressing the whole road, not just the first.
Right, not just the first, it was, they were top dressing it.
But they're
back.
just top dressing.
Yeah, so they're not improving the road at all, they're just making it look pretty. But my concern is that the traffic coming, I mean, yes, we do need to talk to the village about that because it's our road and, the traffic light is there. And the last time we discussed this, the owners at that point in time said, oh, none of the trucks will use your road. Well, how are you going to control that? The traffic light is there. If they go out the other way, they have to go all the way down Corkscrew to somehow turn around to come back. So you're going to tell me these trucks are just going to do that and not skirt it and come out on our road that probably can't handle?
Like I said, we were just asked to review the South Florida water management plans.
Okay.
But we'd be willing to take a look at whatever submittals they have to the village. And or Lee County, I think Lee County has control of Corkscrew Road, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yes. So,
We'd be willing to take a look at those.
yeah, if you could, because first of all, the traffic for the school right now is horrible.
There's several hours a day that's impassable. You can't even get up and down that road.
Yeah, so I mean.
I'm not exaggerating.
You see that at all the schools.
Yeah.
Like that.
And people that live down here that go out that back way during school time go out the front because they just can't get out.
Yeah, we'd be glad to take a look at that.
Yeah, because I think we need to know that because that is negatively going to impact the community.
Be a development requirement on their shoulders.
Yeah, Brett, do you have a copy of the development order application to the village at all or not?
I do not. Like I say, the only thing I've looked at so far was just the South Florida.
Chuck, would that be appropriate then for Brent to ask the village and Quattrone for that also?
We'll get hold of all the plans.
Okay, and then just tell them we're postponing this until the next meeting because I need more information.
This property that they're developing, is it going to be any higher than ours?
I would have to look at the elevations again. I would have to look at the elevations. I don't have the plans in front of me this time.
You mean the buildings?
Yeah.
Okay. My recollection of all the prior meetings, what's going to be right by here is
Not the buildings, the land itself.
the land itself. Okay.
Because if it's higher,
All the water's going to
all
run
the
into
water's
us.
going towards our pond over there.
Right.
But there's swell in place, there's drainage in place that's going to take it, that will give you the runoff coming from that parking lot and move it to the east. There's going to be a dry retention area there where the water receives treatment, and then it'll go back underneath that existing Lime Rock Road, I guess it is now, back into the preserves to the south. The water will catch, and it won't be running off of your property.
How much leaching of gas and oil is going to occur?
That's one reason. Andy Tilton, he's worked with the districts for years, and he's the one that brought up this idea of asking them to place what we call hydrocarbon interceptors in the drainage inlets, and that they're changed out on a regular basis, and the CDD is notified when those changes are made. And that's really all you can do to help mitigate that issue.
Brent, when you look at those plans, I sent you today the April 1st version. Could you see if those components are in the plans? Because that would be helpful if those were in the plans and specs for South Florida.
Like I say, it was
As opposed to just a
recommendation that we made to them.
Yeah.
we may need to make it a little bit stronger language that they are incorporated into the plans
In fact, that comment may need to be made to South Florida.
to South Florida,
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
that we should make the comment to South Florida.
Yeah, so that they can...
So they require it.
So they require it as part of the permit.
Just quickly, Andy's got a good relationship with Laura.
He sure does, yeah.
They can work with them.
And Laura will probably be happy to include that.
Yeah.
No, Nora.
So, and again, we don't know what the requirements, the manufacturer's requirements are. Is there any way we could make it more stringent or ask them to do, and I don't know the timeframe. Let's say they have to change them out every 6 months. Could we require them to do it every 3 months because of the residential? Could we put that onto them? I mean, just a thought, I don't know.
I would probably go with the manufacturer's recommendation.
Okay,
They want their product to perform,
okay.
and so they're not going to make something that
not gonna
change it
work.
out once a year when it should be 6 months.
Okay.
That's going to make the product best. So I think you're safe going with the manufacturer's recommendation.
Okay. All righty. So we'll put that off till next month. Okay.
Deferred again.
Third. Every month we come up
Yeah,
with
and
one.
also, what I would may suggest, Brent, when you talk to Cotrone, ask them to copy you on any submittals to South Florida, so you,
Okay.
We can have South Florida just put you on that.
have South Florida do it too, as an interested party, since, yeah.
Yeah, so that we're on board with all of that.
I don't trust you.
Okay.
I don't trust me.
Here, Tom.
We can keep it if anybody wants to keep them.
Oh,
Excuse me.
I'm sorry. Okay. More paper. Okay, Chuck, bond-related items?
Yes, we're going to start with a brief presentation of the Supplemental Engineers Report. You all received a version in your agenda package. There were some nits and nats that were made to it, so what you have in front of you is the latest version that came out yesterday afternoon. So.
And Joe, if you could highlight the changes made from what was in the agenda packet, do you know what those were or not?
Most of them, but may not every single one of them.
Okay.
I can capture, but as far as just highlighting through some of the updates at least.
Thank you.
No problem.
Is this online?
This one is not, it's in the agenda, a version, an earlier version, a couple of days older, so substantially it's in substantial form on the agenda, in the agenda.
I'd say 96%.
Yeah, maybe even a little
Maybe
higher.
higher.
Do we have another one, Chuck?
Tony?
I have one.
Okay, Joe, you're on.
Oh, thank you very much. My name is Joe DeBono with Johnson Engineering. Thank you very much for having us here today. Just wanted to present the draft supplemental engineers report that's in front of you. A couple of the items we've already touched on earlier today, but I'll just go through and highlight exactly what the purpose of this report is trying to convey. The district is looking to make a couple of improvements, one of which was mentioned earlier regarding landscaping. We have roadway improvements that's also captured in this report, as well as some land acquisition that fronts onto Corkscrew Road, of which I think we have it listed as the clubhouse, but I think everyone knows where that building is at.
Okay.
We actually went through with the help of a couple of folks here, not only on our side, but also the district's attorney and manager, both of which, and those gentlemen can speak on their behalfs, but we did receive some feedback from them, and we have incorporated their requests and updates in this report as well. This is in draft form, so we are open for suggestions or updates that the board or respective parties would like to make for this one. The landscaping improvements, we've already gone through that a little bit more earlier. We've already provided a probable cost associated with that item, which was listed at that $1 million.
Right.
We also provided some budgetary line item for the roadway improvements that was listed out in supported by another report that we had provided before. And then finally, the land acquisition portion of the report regarding the clubhouse. Not only is the acquisition of that property, but the improvements to the mill and resurface of the parking lot was also incorporated in that as well. So all of which equates to a total of approximately $11 million listed out in the report. There was one line item that was actually captured as contingency, which did include, if you look at the table at the very bottom of that, there's a footnote regarding the soft costs associated with that line item, which was captured. So going through, that whole package was basically called the Series 2022 project, in which, on a final remark, the financing and assessment methodology would actually be completed by a separate consultant. We just provided, with the help of some of your other folks here, the respective budget associated with those numbers. And open for any sort of feedback, questions, or remarks.
You did the roadway survey where we were going to, was that Johnson Engineering? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep.
And it was supposed to start in 2026. When we get these funds, we can start it earlier.
You can do the whole thing.
Okay, so we don't have to do it in stages.
The idea is to accelerate those that were going to be pushed off a few years out, and those that were right on, you're just going to do the whole roadway. The one exception is you just did the main entry.
Right.
7 or 8 years ago, so I asked him to pull that out.
Okay.
But at the same time, asked him to put in the parking lot at the restaurant, the clubhouse. So those were pretty much an even swap.
Okay.
So that's why that number didn't change.
Okay, so we don't have to wait till 2026?
No, I suggest you get them done very quickly.
Okay, I think so.
Of which some of the information that was mentioned was listed out in some of the figures within the document as well, so it helps to reference those and follow along, which, as the manager just described, that was captured in there.
Okay. All right. Isn't this for
Any questions or comments on the supplement?
The only,
Pretty straightforward.
I don't really, yeah, I mean, it's all pretty straightforward. I think the one thing that keeps coming back, and I highlighted it last night, and I think even Santo was kind of getting to it as well, is this $1 million for the landscaping. And now I know we've already, let's see, what do we have in the general fund? You know, we've got $1 million, $1,092,000 in the general fund. Now, 300 of that's catastrophe. We started doing that after Irma was put us aside. We never had this money before. I don't think, prior to Irma, I don't think there was ever, in my memory, there was ever over maybe $50,000, maybe, in this account? Maybe?
We had some very lean years.
And some of that was U.S. Homes wouldn't allow it.
Exactly. Yeah, they don't.
And then the other part was we just kind of did a thing, we pay as we go. You know. Well, now we've got over $1 million in that account. So let's say, all right, 300,000 is for catastrophe, so we say we have 700,000 for that account. Now, 200 in there is specifically outlined on our budget as for this landscape project. So that proposed $1 million that we're not even sure is going to be $1 million, take 200,000 off that, so now you're talking 800,000. That still leaves us almost $600,000 outside of that hurricane fund that's in this account. Personally, I think we should use, if not all of it, at least a portion, and I would propose a large portion of that to go towards this, not necessarily the landscaping, but just in general, whether it's the landscaping, whether it's the streets, it's money we've already paid in, and it's really not doing anything. And we would still have the 300,000 for catastrophic events. So I don't think that changes what we're necessarily talking about, but it was something that I highlighted in the report, and then again started looking at these numbers, and of course even Santo brought it up today, and I just think it's...
I think one of the things I would look at from a strategy perspective is we've kind of put this engineer's report together with what we consider to be very comfortable numbers
Right.
to get these projects done. But there's also a certain element of unknown with cost and where those are actually going. So I would suggest we leave these numbers alone in the engineer's report.
Yeah.
And I don't expect we'll come up short, but if we do, you have the opportunity to utilize some of the dollars you've already collected over the years in your general fund to place towards that. Keep in mind, you also have used a portion of those already to make the 10%, total of 10% deposit.
So some of that is-
And we're also paying $25,000 a month in extension fee. I would expect that you'll have some leftover dollars in here to repay yourself, and that's the plan. That's what I've programmed into this. But I want to make sure we have enough money to get the projects
I
out
get it.
that everybody's expecting, and to the level that everybody's expecting. And I want to get the projects done as quickly as possible and close out what we'll call the construction fund, and then we're not just on a repayment program. And we may have leftover dollars in that construction fund, which you can prepay principal with, so.
Yeah, I wasn't proposing we change this, the projects. It's an outline. These are just numbers that we're
Right.
putting out there, saying these are realistic numbers that we have to go off of. I just wanted to bring it up as a start of an idea and discussion, is that we do have money in here. We clearly have money in here that we specifically said we are going to put towards this landscaping, which
Well,
that's going to
sure
happen.
And that will happen.
But there could be more funds, and I get it too, because we also have a lake we're looking at where we might have to do some lake bank over on Wyndham. So there's other things.
Right, but
I just wanted to bring it up for discussion. You said anything to discuss, and that was one thing I highlighted last night
Check
in
the
the report.
box.
It really didn't have a lot to do with the report, other than I saw the number, and I was like, well, I know we have
Strategy,
funds somewhere else.
strategy discussion for sure.
And it's good, and when we get to a point where this is excessive, Chuck said we can pay down some of the principal.
Yeah, you'll have your engineer will actually certify the project complete at that point and deem that everything that was anticipated to be done has been done and is complete, and leftover funds can be utilized or transferred from the construction fund to the prepayment account in the trust estate, so.
Okay. And that's, that would be my intention.
Excuse me, you mentioned something about an extension fee. I heard that came up at that private meeting that you
There
had.
was no private meeting.
Well,
It
one person showed up and nobody in the community even know there was a meeting.
It was a special meeting,
It was announced as
and it was announced.
Where? In the
It was
meeting?
announced in the meeting prior that we were having that meeting. We needed to push it out a week, which
The
we
one
did.
you had last week?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Well, one person showed up?
Yes, one person.
Okay, and the extension fee is
It's
now required because of what?
The notice.
Because we're extending the closing date so that we can avoid doing the cost of a bond anticipation note, which is about $150,000 of overhead cost, and just go right to bonding, issuing the bond to make the payment. So instead of a bond anticipation note and then issuing the bond and incurring overhead costs twice, we have worked with the seller to push out the closing date, which was originally the 29th, right? April 29th.
April 29.
Now through August 31st. Each month, there's a $25,000 fee, though, for that. So the quicker we can validate this bond and get the bond issued, the quicker we can negate the monthly fees.
And Santos, it is a standard cost of doing business that we have checked with other commercial realtors and commercial brokers, and in extending this, and as I said at the last meeting, quite honestly, it's lower than they could have charged.
Kind of ends up being a wash. It kind of ends up being a wash. It kind of ends up being a wash. We would have had to do, for better terms, a bridge loan to get us from April 29th to whenever the close date was, which would have cost us roughly $150,000 to do this bridge loan. Because when you close, you have to take the money, right? So we would have had to done a bridge loan from April 29th to whenever we could get the bond, again, for just, I'm trying to use layman terms, to get the bonds issued was going to cost us about $150,000. We're avoiding that $150,000. We are incurring $25,000 a month. By avoiding that $150,000, we're hoping we can get this done quicker, so we're actually potentially saving a little money. If we can do it in 3 months, it's going to be $75,000. That's half of $150,000. The 150,000 was set. We were going to have to spend that to get the bridge loan.
And then 150 to get the bond. So it would have been 300.
Oh,
So
actually,
now-
so yeah, 300
Yeah.
actually.
So you just overestimated how quickly you can close it out of there.
Well,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, to some degree, yes. I mentioned that in the meeting, as I guess, kind of this does fall. We didn't actually know, because we knew, I mean,
We hung up on a few things, but we were always anticipating a bond anticipation note. And we had set that for, to be secured prior to April 29th. And we would have missed that in practical terms by about 10 days. So we had some hang-ups with inspections and the appraisal. A little slower. We had a few other hoops we had to clear
zoning issue,
legally.
potential zoning issue we had to get ironed out.
Yeah, again, not dealing with this every day, where a district acquires a already standing building. We had a few things that we need to do, dot some i's and cross some t's, so we're there.
So what's your best date is when we finalize the bond?
I expect we'll be in July.
That's where we start paying for the bond.
No.
When do you start?
You'll start paying for that in November.
Can't wait
In your
for
new-
the fiscal year?
Yeah, that's your new fiscal year, in your new budget.
October 1st.
Yes, but
Yes.
you would have a November 1, 50% of annual interest payment November 1, then you'd have 50%, the other 50% of the annual interest plus the annual principal payment May 1,
All in the fiscal year.
all in that same fiscal year, yes, sir.
okay.
Is it ready to roll on to the methodology report? Huh? The resolution will accept all of that.
Okay.
Yep. Yes, thank you, Joseph. So next is the assessment methodology report, and I think you all received that electronically yesterday, and I do apologize for that. There were some little nits to that, nothing significant, but really what this does is it takes the expenses, the project expenses that Joseph just outlined for you, adds to them the cost of issuance, adds to them the cost of funding a debt service reserve fund, and other associated cost to basically bring this to a par amount. And then from there, we've done an estimate to ramp this up even higher, because keep in mind, this is what we refer to as a master, though it's deemed as supplemental, it's kind of a master, and we're going to go in and validate the total amount, and we want that validation to be well above what we anticipate actually issuing. So what you see in here in terms of these costs are overestimates to a certain degree, okay? So this report goes through, it starts off by outlining the community itself, kind of giving you a little history of the community, a little history on the actual project itself, the current development status, which is 18-hole golf course. We had an 8.38 plus or minus acre commercial property. It's commercial today. When it was initially planned, it was 39 residential units. So we identify that in here along with the residential units that are completely constructed at this point. We go through the project and the number of issues that we've had in terms of bond issues over the years. We've had obviously the 98, a 2008, a 2013, and a 2014. So it's kind of a history there of all the various issues that you have issued in prior years.
Is this in our,
No, it's not. It's not on. Well, actually, yes, it is updated. Electronically, it was updated yesterday and will contain this report in that, so.
Do you have an extra one of that?
I do not.
Okay.
I brought 7 or 8.
I can give you-
If there's one sitting in front of
Okay, John.
John's vacant seat,
This one? Yeah.
yeah, there you go. So then we get into outlining the financing program itself, and we've identified the $14,615,000 as the par amount of issue for the purposes of validation. Types of bonds to be issued, this is kind of outlines the bond issue itself. It's anticipated to be no more than $14,615,000, providing net amount for hard project cost of $11 million. We have put into this a 24-month capitalized interest period, 30-year annual installments, and the interest rate has been estimated at 5%. Keep in mind, this is going to be a blended rate because the clubhouse portion of it is actually taxable because of the private use with the lease with Duffy's. So that has to be taxable. The rest of it's tax exempt. So the blended rate at 5%, and I believe that to actually be very conservatively high. Let you all know that we actually have submitted a credit packet to S&P Global for credit rating, and we're expecting that credit rating to come out May 20th, so just prior to your public hearing.
Okay.
Could you clarify something?
Sure.
When you talked about the tax exemption and all of that, does that mean that the CDD will not have to pay property taxes on the Duffy's portion?
The CDD will not pay property taxes on.
Well, on the Duffy portion.
I'm sorry, on the Duffy's portion, we may end up having to pay.
Yes.
I was going to say that
Yes.
currently.
Yeah, because the private use of that, yes.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, could I bring up a different point about that? And I don't know.
Can I finish this report to the board first, and then we'll open it up for any
Okay,
public
thank
comments, okay? So moving through the assessment methodology, again, we've identified the benefits to the community itself, and a distinction between benefited properties and non-benefited properties. And in this particular case, the residential portion or units all are considered to be beneficial properties. The golf course is non-beneficial, and in seeing that the golf course itself actually provides benefit to the community, because that is where most of your stormwater system is located, and the fact that the golf course is designed to overflow, if you will, or flood, if you will, to protect and keep runoff off the residential property. So it provides more benefit than it receives. So that's not included in here, and that's the way it was looked at originally when we did the original methodology back in 1998. And then the change with the commercial, that was originally 39 residential units outside of the gate, because of where it's located and the fact that it's been rezoned to commercial, and there won't be really any benefit to that property owner with regards to any of these improvements, most of which are internal, and with the golf course the clubhouse being a kind of a private use and supporting the golf course operation. So in this particular case, we're not going to continue the assessment, if you will, for the capital improvements on those commercial properties. Back in the day when we initially did this, it was residential, and it was appropriate to bring them in because they were benefiting from all of the residential benefits that the rest of the residential community benefited from. So then we get into the lienability test, which is standard, and it's a measurement of special and peculiar benefit to the property. The three measuring sticks that you have to measure up against, which is added use of the property, added enjoyment of the property, and increased marketability and value of the property. Obviously, there's a great deal of value that the residential beneficial owners will gain from all of these improvements that are part of this bond issue, and particularly the clubhouse portion of it as well. You'll remove the opportunity or the potential opportunity of losing parking that supports that golf course. Most importantly, you are going to be in control of it as the owner now, so there's no chance of losing the parking that supports the golf course. Obviously, you gain some additional benefit in terms of owning the building in which the pro shop is contained in. You'll have the opportunity to, I know we're talking about the golf course will continue to pay rent. You'll have an opportunity to revisit that rental amount, which was escalated many years ago, and when we defaulted around the recession and we didn't have the revenues to pay, and we ended up escalating that amount to perhaps a level that's a bit intense for the type of use it is. Yeah. That was a lovely time. So those are really kind of the ascertainable benefits. It's hard to really do any kind of a mathematical equation on that, but it's deemed that in fact the benefits far outweigh the assessment lien that's going to be placed against the residential. So, and I tend to think about the golf course itself. If you were to ever lose the supporting infrastructure for that golf course and you had to shut that down, what that would do to all of your property values as you sit there and watch a golf course deteriorate in your backyard. So that one's pretty easy to measure. So then we get back into the tables. So you can see where the number of units per product type coming to 1,119 units within the gates here at Stony Brook, the golf course, and it's 114 acres, which is a non-beneficial property, and then a vacant commercial, which is deemed to be, at least a portion of it, is going to be gas station as it sits right now. So, then we have the sources and uses. So you can see here how we get to the 14,615. Obviously, we have the project cost improvement plan that Joseph just outlined for you. The bond proceeds at 14,615,000, so you take out the 11 million. Debt service reserve fund at 1,119,179. You have your capitalized interest fund of 1,899,950. And then you have your cost of issuance, and you have the underwriter's discount, totaling $14,615,000. And again, don't let these numbers scare you. This is for validation purposes. Once you validate that amount, you can't go above it without going through the process again. When we get ready to actually issue the bonds, it's going to be something significantly lower than that number, and we're going to be able to reduce things such as 24-month capitalized interest. We've never talked about that. I don't think you want to pay extra interest, and I think you start right out of the chute making principal and interest payments. We don't need the capitalized interest expense. Debt service reserve fund, there may be some reduction in that. That's a full year principal and interest coverage there. I think we're going to get at least 50%. So that helps to push this number up, and I think it's just going to come back out when we actually get ready to issue bonds. And the blended rate on the interest rate that I shared with you earlier, I think you're going to see that come down. I expect you're going to have a really good credit rating. You're well established. You've had a really great collection rate over the years. Barring the recession, even through